Thank you, my side, for everybody who attended, all of the speakers, and we've got a special surprise at the end of the session, Stefan Hoops from DWS. And Stefan.
Thank you, and also from Germany. So special thanks to Zach for keeping my country warm last year. Thank you everyone for attending. Obviously, hopefully it was good, interesting discussions. Thank you for the panelists and the corporate executives for sharing their thoughts on kind of like the key trends in infrastructure, right? So transportation, logistics, obviously energy transformation, and then LNG and gas. And maybe a couple of thoughts on how relevant what you are, like what you're doing, how relevant it is, not just from an investment perspective, but really as a domestic differentiator and really a geopolitical tool. So a couple of years ago, I looked after Deutsche Bank's corporate bank. So I joined DWS 16 months ago before I ran Deutsche Bank's division, which houses all of the corporates, or, the mid caps, kind of what you know Germany for. And roughly 2 years ago, I was in Houston meeting an energy executive. And he said, well, just walk me through your thought process where Germany shut down all of its coal power plants because of environmental consideration. And you are shutting down your nuclear power plants because the Green Party wants that, right? And you clearly hate getting gas from Russia, but you also have no sun. So solar doesn't really work. But your manufacturing is really what makes your country thrive. So like, how does that make sense? And then, for those of you that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, I posted that 2 years ago, right? And then followed that trend and, got in trouble with our comms department because I called Germany the most Russian gas dependent economy 3 months before the invasion, right? And I think we found out the hard way of how differentiating it is to have reliable access to energy. Again, we're happy to obviously pay to Zach what we paid them last year. But when you think about our industrial sector in Germany being hugely dependent on energy, it's really domestic differentiated to have that. So when you think about what was driving geopolitics for the last 20, 30 years, actually last 100 years, you can argue with the Middle East and everything, it was really access to reliable energy. So I think what you do beyond being in a great investment theme is something which is really domestic differentiator. Let's also think about how we can get parts of the world on our side that's sort of between us and China. And let me give you the example of India. So India is a country that when you look at the cost of logistics as a percentage of GDP, they're still in the mid-teens, right? So the most efficient countries, logistics is roughly 7, 8, 9% of GDP. In India, it's still 15, 16%. So the one thing that would really get India to be a much more competitive economy is much better transportation, much better logistics. And I feel that's something that we understand well in the West, right? The US, EU, and so on. So when it comes to thinking about how we can get countries in Africa, countries in the Middle East, countries in Far Asia on our side, I think transportation, so the stuff that you do, is really also an interesting geopolitical tool to just be closer aligned to some of those countries. So, when we have drinks in a second, then hopefully all of you will stick around. In addition to everything we discussed today, and so like listed infrastructure being a really interesting investment theme, which I think we've seen in previous years and will be even more interesting in the future, all of the additional benefits from a supporting local industries, but also the geopolitical element is something which is quite important. We should also always keep in mind, trust my word, as a person with a thick German accent, it really kept us busy for the last couple of years. Again, thank you very much for attending. Hopefully you'll stick around. And I think the bar is now open. Thank you.